Thank you, Garai. I'm going to choose English. This is my 9th visit to Istanbul, and each year I feel the passion for integrated thinking and integrated reporting, and for combining the importance of sustainability and the impact of ESG factors on total value increasing. You know, passion cannot be taught, it's caught. And it's been caught in Turkey. So at the end of my talk, I hope that you will feel my passion for integrated thinking and integrated reporting, and why I believe it is a game changer. Not only is it a game changer, but it's critical for your children and your grandchildren, mentioned by the chairman of Borsa Istanbul, for the 22nd century. We cannot, with the tools, the corporate tools we used in the 19th and 20th century, solve the challenges and problems of the 21st century. We cannot carry on business as usual. And it follows as a matter of logic that we cannot report as usual. It is just not sufficient. So I do not usually read a speech, as many of you will know, but I've asked to do a speech today that it can be recorded and it can be copied. The global economy has been in crisis mode for the last decade. Witness the global financial crisis, the new regulatory capital requirements for banks, and the economic recession in one of the world's great economies, Japan. Stability and sustainability have become key words for the Financial Stability Board, and buzzwords for business and political leaders. All this from short-termism and silo thinking wrapped in value seen through a narrow cash flow lens, completely inadequate in the 21st century. We have to develop stable and sustainable trees in a forest of mega trends of the 21st century, which include radical transparency with social media, population explosion, the use of natural assets faster than nature is regenerating them, greater expectations from energized activist stakeholders, such as Greenpeace in regard to palm oil, climate change, already mentioned, digital manufacturing, that's going to the next 10, 15 years change completely the way we do business. And the millennials, or net generation as some like to call them, more concerned about the GEC, the global environmental crunch, which they are absolutely certain is going to happen. Saying, as they have said to me around the world, that the global financial crisis is nothing compared with the GEC when it comes. Many of us have already experienced water shortages in places around the world. Towards the end of the 19th century and the greater part of the 20th century, the question was, how much money has this company made? Then at the turn of the century, companies were being asked, how much money have you spent on social investment? Some countries have even legislated for companies to spend a percentage of net profits on corporate social investment. Well intended, but adverse consequences. Build a school, tick a box, and you would have complied with the required CSI of India, for example. Could that ever be responsible social behavior by a company? Seen through the responsible eyes, for example, of Borsa Istanbul or the capital markets of Turkey? The answer, in my view, is clearly in the negative. The question of social responsibility involves society and the impacts of how the company makes its money on the economy, society, and the environment. Why is this so? This is so because business is at the junction of these three critical aspects. It always has been. Companies have never operated in a vacuum. We've all heard of the triple bottom line, but none of us has ever reported as such. We know one metric, that's the monetary bottom line. But companies have always operated in the triple context of the economy, society, and the environment, notwithstanding statements such as by that great laureate economist Milton Friedman. The market value of organizations shifted towards the end of the 20th century. The intangible assets of a company became worth more than the tangible assets, which would be additives in a balance sheet according to financial reporting standards. In a world of increasing demand for product and a diminishing natural asset base, creating sustainable value by making more from less depends on two critical factors. We have to manage these intangible assets, and we have to adapt as corporate leaders or fail. Adapt to a realization that financial reporting, although not broken and critical, is not sufficient for directors to discharge their duty to be accountable. Value was seen as the present value of discounted future cash flows. It was seen through this narrow financial lens for 90 years. As long as the cash flows were positive, irrespective of how they were created, the company was said to be successful. In fact, it could have had a positive monetary bottom line, but having an adverse impact on society and the environment, that the overall conclusion could be that it was in fact destroying value. It is clear that short-termism was a contributing factor to the global financial crisis. Capitalism seen through a short-term lens has failed. We have to think of sustainable capitalism in the 21st century. This requires a company to embed the sustainability issues pertinent to its business into its long-term strategy and to report in clear, concise, and understandable language how its strategy will create value short, medium, and long term. How else do stakeholders, particularly those who are compelled to carry out surveillance, such as the Borsa İstanbul, capital markets, how do they make an informed assessment about a company's stability and sustainability? Value in this context needs a reliance on natural capital, social capital, human capital, as well as the other capitals we mentioned in the IRC framework: financial, manufactured, and intellectual. It became clear to thought leaders at the turn into the 21st century that financial reporting, although critical and not broken, was not sufficient, simply because 80% of the market cap of companies was not represented by additives in a balance sheet. And so the concept of sustainability reporting was born in 1997. Today, to judge value creation needs a clear understanding of the company's business model. How is the company using both its tangible and its intangible assets to sustain value creation? The company's business model, or how it makes its money from the viewpoints of governance, risk management, strategy, etc., is at the heart of integrated thinking. Reality demonstrates that there is an interdependence and interrelationship between the resources or capitals used by a company and its ongoing relationship with its stakeholders. The collective mind of the board has to report on this in understandable language, not in IFRS speak or GRI speak, which unfortunately has become, through complexity and necessity in creating those standards, to be not understandable to 99% of the users who are actually the ultimate providers of capital and the lenders of money to companies. To report in two silos is a removal from reality, because the financial impacts on the non-financial and vice versa. Integrated thinking involves an assessment of the inputs into the business model and the company's output, its product or service. But its product goes out into society and impacts on the environmental and the social aspects. These are the outcomes. Consequently, integrated thinking needs a consideration of the inputs into the business model, of how the company makes its money, and the impacts of how it makes its money on those three critical aspects, and the impacts of its outputs on those three critical aspects, in short, the company's outcomes. All this led to a consideration by the latest 2007 that integrated thinking leading to an integrated report was perhaps the answer to these issues. The collective mind of the board should be applied to understanding the financial report, understanding the so-called non-financial aspects and reports, and extracting the material aspects defined as those which substantively impact on those three critical aspects, and setting them out in clear, concise, and understandable language, so that the users can see how the company has embedded the sustainability issues pertinent to its business into its strategy. The trustees of your pension fund must be able to make an informed assessment that the business of this company in the 21st century will sustain value creation. A conformist approach to corporate reporting is not the answer. A conformist environment needs to be reinforced by fear, comply or else, such as Sarbanes-Oxley. And usually the sanction is a criminal one. It is far better to have an enterprising environment reinforced by trust and apply quality governance on an apply or explain basis. Why not? After all, the ultimate compliance officer is in fact an entity stakeholders. Providers of capital and lenders of money will more easily and more cheaply lend money or provide capital to a company which reports in clear, concise and understandable language and tells its story about the state of play inside the company, simply because the provider of capital or the lender of money can measure risk on a more informed basis. These alone are good, hard-nosed business reasons to adapt to integrated thinking and an integrated report. Integrated thinking involves a consideration of the outcomes of a company's product or service, which involves factors such as customer satisfaction, profit or loss, shareholder return, contribution to the local economy through taxes, etc. If one takes the example of a car manufacturer, the output is the car itself, while the outcomes to the consumer will be mobility, safety, reliability, comfort, status, etc. Integrated thinking must move through the inputs, through how the company makes its money, to its outputs, to the impact of its output on society and the environment itself. In this uncertain world, with these megatrend changes, we can no longer continue to grope in the dark. We have to adopt a corporate behavior which is going to sustain value creation. A failure to do so will result in companies continuing down the street of last opportunity, because that's what we have been doing. We have to steer our companies into the avenue of sustainable capitalism. We do not have to grope in the dark anymore, because the light is before us with the IRC's framework on integrated thinking and the integrated report. The acceptance of integrated reporting in the last few years has been nothing short of phenomenal. There is acceptance of it by major corporations around the world, both public and private. The benefits arising from integrated thinking and the integrated report, according to independent research done by the Black Sun, shows that a staggering 92% of companies adopting integrated reporting say it has improved their understanding of value creation. 84% have said that their data quality has improved. 79% are finding that their business decision-making has improved. 78% see better collaborative thinking about the board's goals and targets. These are all good business reasons why one needs to adapt to integrated reporting, or fail to see the sustainable wood in this forest of megatrends. The IRC created a pilot program for private sector companies, and 105 iconic companies joined that pilot program, which came to an end in Madrid in September this year and evolved into the business network. I would urge private sector businesses in Turkey, and I would encourage TKYD to promote their members to join the business network so that they can meet their peers who have embraced integrated thinking, taking the lead in adapting to integrated reporting. They will have an opportunity to network with other leading businesses and demonstrate leading practices that will inspire a new generation of integrated reporting adopters. On 17 November, just a couple of weeks ago in Washington, the Public Sector Pioneer Network was launched at the World Bank Public Sector Integrated Reporting Conference, where experts from organizations including the World Bank, United Nations Development Programme, National Health Service of the United Kingdom, and the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board gathered to explore why and how the public sector should be adopting integrated reporting. Mark Carney, the chairman of the Financial Stability Board, has repeatedly said that the two great challenges of the 21st century are stability and sustainability. One cannot tell either of these critical factors from a financial report alone or from a sustainability report alone. But one can be informed about stability and sustainability from an integrated report. So we have the light before us. The concept of value has changed forever. The world has changed, and consequently the way we carry on business has to change. Society, this tapestry of individuals connected through an entity contractually or through civil society, is today filled with energetic activism. Witness the Wall Street occupiers, St. Paul's Cathedral, and Marikana in my country, South Africa. Responsible investment by the world's great asset owners is also driving companies towards integrated thinking and doing an integrated report, already referred to by the chairman of Borsa Istanbul. In short, they are drivers for change. Men and nations have survived and thrived on concepts and ideas. The very concept of limited liability formed the basis in the last quarter of the 19th century of the modern economy as we know it today. Reality of the changed world of the 21st century is the great driver to change corporate behavior and to appreciate the interrelationship and interconnection between the resources used by a company and its ongoing relationships with its stakeholders. Integrated reporting, as I've said many times, is a concept whose time has come. It is needed. It has been accepted by the great international institutions that we have to change our corporate behavior and the way we report. The traction and uptake of integrated thinking and the integrated report around the world shows, in my judgment, that it is the answer to the corporate challenges of the 21st century to take us down a sustainable path into the 22nd century. So the challenge I leave with you is the following: adapt or fail. So the responsible thing in the context of the mega trends I've outlined is to adapt. And if you do so, you will walk hand in hand with stability and sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor King. Efendim, öğleden sonra oturum düzenlemek yemeğin üzerine çok iddialı bir hedef zaten. Ama buna karşılık çok güçlü konuşmacılarımız var. Sizlerin de interaktif katılımlarınızla bu bölümü çok keyifli geçireceğimizi düşünüyorum. Sayın Oturum Başkanı ve konuşmacıları davet etmeden önce biliyorsunuz Sabancı Çimento Grubu Başkanı Hakan Bey de bugün bizlerle birlikte olacaktı. Ancak son anda oluşan bir yurt dışı programı nedeniyle katılamadı. Kendisinin özürlerini, selam ve sevgilerini iletiyorum. Ama kendileri ilk günden bize bir pilot kampanya olarak Garanti Bankası ile birlikte çok önemli destek verdiler. Yaklaşık 100 kadar dev kuruluşun yer aldığı bir ortamda 2 tane Türk kuruluşu da onlar sayesinde yer almış oldu. İnşallah bu salonu temsil eden diğer kuruluşlar da yakın zamanda yer alacaktır bu. Az önce Merve'nin de davet ettiği Business Network'te. Efendim oturumu IRC'nin CEO'su Paul Druckmann yönetecek. Paul yazılım konusunda bir girişimci olarak başladı iş hayatına. Daha sonra birçok İngiliz şirketinde icradan sorumlu olmayan yönetim kurulu üyesi olarak devam etti. International Chartered Accountants of England and Wales'de başbakanlık görevini yürüttü. Şu anda da çok şanslı üyesi, kendisi IRC'nin CEO'su ve çok aktif çalışmalarla dünya çapında bu görevi yürütüyor. Panelin diğer katılımcıları arasında Eric Breen bulunuyor. Eric Breen aynı zamanda kurumsal yatırımcıların bu konuya bakışını bizlere aktarıyor olacaklar. Kendisi aynı zamanda IRC Konseyi'nin üyesi. Kendisine çok teşekkür ediyoruz katılımlarından dolayı. Türkiye'yi temsil eden katılımcılar arasında Borsa İstanbul Başkan Yardımcımız, aynı zamanda Borsa'da İstanbul altındaki Sürübik platformunun başkanlığını yürütmekte olan Mustafa Kemal Bey var. Ve son konuşmacımız Haluk Özdemir, Anadolu Efes Grubu'nun Kurumsal İlişkiler Direktörü. Kendisinde sermaye piyasalarının uzun bir deneyimi var. Sanıyorum iyi bir bilişimi bize sunuyor olacaklar. Umarım faydalı ve keyifli bir tartışma ortamı olur.
Thank you, Guray. And how is it that one follows the chairman in such an inspirational speech? So I won't try. What we're going to do, I hope, is to bring a bit of reality and practice to the discussion now. So we have such a distinguished panel who are going to speak for a few moments from their own perspective. And then we're going to ask, I mean, normally in these situations, I would ask a series of questions and then pass it over to the floor. Well, we're going to reverse it today. Okay, we're going to pass it over to the floor after the introductions and the initial statements. And if you're no good, then I'll ask the questions, okay? So we'll switch it around, see how that goes. Try and bring a bit of energy into quite a hot room, as we all know. And the secret is, why I'm standing up is I'm trying to spot those who are still asleep, because it is quite difficult. But then let's try and keep it that way. I just wanted to open with a couple of things. And the first thing really is to thank the opening speakers for the leadership that's obviously coming here in Turkey. I'm very grateful for Guray for all his amazing work that he does on behalf of integrated reporting and the IRC here, and all of your colleagues, and I recognise many who are here. But I think one of the things we'll come back to later is the fact that Turkey, now as the president of the G20, has an additional responsibility, and I think it's one of the things, perhaps there may be some questions or whatever that we could explore about where we go from Brisbane to Istanbul. Where do we actually move the G20? Is it meaningful? And it's one of the things that I think we should talk about. But let me start by saying, in fact, when I was first introduced to one of the speakers here today, he said to me, I know that reporting is quite a boring thing. Oh no, it's not. Reporting is exciting. Because after all, as Mervyn said quite clearly, in our view, reporting influences behaviour. I've said it many, many times, because actually if reporting is compliance, then we might as well go and have our drinks and refreshments now, and let the regulators get on with it, because that's not the game that we're in. It's about behaviour, and not so much behaviour change necessarily, but actually making sure that there is good behaviour and behaviour that suits the world that we want to live in, as Mervyn so accurately described it. And I often use a phrase where we talk about lines of sight. And in many ways, corporate reporting today, do you know who you get? I'm speaking in English. We have lines of sight, okay? So I fear that where we are in corporate reporting today is that we have hindsight and oversight. We're very focused on what's happened, and we're very focused on controls, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But actually, we've also got to think about where is the foresight and where is the insight that we're going to get from the corporate reporting of organisations. And I think it's just a thing to think about. And it sounds a bit fancy, but I don't think it is. It's trying to move us in the debate a little bit forward. And when we talk about integrated reporting and what it is, it's really looking at a company through its strategy, rather than, again, where I have to say the capital markets, and I know there are various capital market regulators and others here in the room, where the capital markets tends to look at the data. Data is important, don't get me wrong, but data without context of what that information is about and what it means to the business is often the failure of some of the systems that we have in place today. One of the two final things I wanted to say, the second one was actually earlier this morning. We held a meeting of what we call the Corporate Reporting Dialogue. The Corporate Reporting Dialogue brings together the different international corporate reporting organisations that there are in the different spaces. So whether it be GRI or the IASB with IFRS, lots of acronyms, or the IRC or CDP with the Carbon Disclosure Project and many others, bringing those together to start to talk together and not leave it all to the preparers and the investors to think about where this is going, but actually trying to understand, trying to align and have some cohesion there. And in fact, we have the chair of the Corporate Reporting Dialogue sitting right in front of me, Huguette Lebel. So thank you for being here, Luke Huguette. The final thing I wanted to just mention was about take-up. And I think there's a lot of talk around the world about integrated reporting being in its early days. And it is in its early days, but don't underestimate how much take-up there is around the world. And I just wanted to illustrate it with a couple of facts. In Japan, in the last reporting cycle, there were 130 companies that produced what they felt was an integrated report. Now, I say what they felt because it certainly has a long way to go, but nonetheless, they were starting on that journey. Names: Mitsubishi Corporation. Is there a bigger Japanese company? I'm not sure. Sorry? Bigger pardon. Okay, well, one of the biggest Japanese companies. The NEC, Fujitsu, Omron, and I could go on. These are major names who are producing integrated reports, starting their journey. If I stay in Asia, I can go to Singapore. In fact, the Singapore Stock Exchange will be producing their first integrated report. The DBS Bank, biggest bank in Southeast Asia, have done their first integrated report, and the second one, they believe, will be fully in line with the international framework. I could talk about others who have said that they will in the next reporting rounds of 2014 accounts. Maybe these names don't mean anything, but UOB, Maritime Ports Authority, City Developments, the Capital Land, these are the big companies of Singapore. And again, Jane Diplock is in the audience here, and I know Jane is on the board of the Singapore Stock Exchange and has, should we say, some influence in what goes on. But it's not only that. I could go on. If I stick to Asia, I could go to Korea, where SK Telecom, Samsung, POP, and many others. These are the major companies that are moving towards integrated reporting. I could go into the UK. I can go to Brazil. We have Nelson and Sandra Guerra and Nelson Cavalier here from Brazil, with an immensely strong network of companies that are not just thinking about doing integrated reporting, but are already doing integrated reporting. So don't underestimate what's happening around the world. It's still early days in certain parts of the world, but the momentum is a roller coaster. And as the previous chair